Okay. Really, really needed. Today's lesson is love that shapes society. Love that shapes society. And it's coming from the first part is covenant loves begins at home. Deuteronomy, the 6th chapter, 3 through 9. We are missing two in the first part of Deuteronomy. And let's just go back a little bit. God told Moses that he wanted the people to have hearts that were inclined to fear him. How do we fear God? Are we supposed to be scared of him? Or how do we fear God? He wants us to fear him. Respect. Okay, good, good. Today, I'm standing in the place of Tyrone, so I want y'all to get that mic and y'all speak up. We're going to get through this, though. So God wanted them to fear. In other words, he wanted them to respect and to obey him. There's a difference between doing something because it is required and then doing something because we want to. Okay? So let's look at Deuteronomy 6 and 3. Hear therefore, O Israel, and observe to do it, that it may be well with thee, and that ye may increase mightily, as the Lord God of thy fathers hath promised thee, in the land that floweth with milk and honey. Can anyone tell me what that verse is talking about? Can anyone tell me? For a nation that had wandered for over 40 years in the wilderness. Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Newkirk.
Okay, right. Here, the Israelites have been, as you said, 40 years. They have, the Egyptian bondage is over now, and they are trying to make it to the promised land. And what Moses is speaking through God, we need to remember that he's speaking through God. And so when he says, hear therefore, O Israel, and observe to do it, that means all the commands. Observe to do all the commands. In other words, if you're obedient, you'll be blessed. If you're disobedient, you'll be cursed.
Okay.
And also, when he said here, he's probably referring to their disobedience prior to that time. Why it took them so long to get there.
40 years when they could have gone in how many days?
11 days.
11 days. Isn't that something? 40 years.
40 years.
And at this time, Moses was talking to the youth. So the older one had deceased.
Right. That's right. Okay.
Isn't that amazing that Moses spoke to the youth?
Use the mic.
He was speaking to everyone, but it related to the youth. He wanted the youth to carry on.
Right.
Like we should have our church, we should be speaking to the youth.
Right. Okay, I'm going to go ahead on and read. So I'm sorry. Does anyone else have anything to say? Mr. Allen? Okay. I'm going to read 4 through 9. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord, and thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might. And these words which I command thee to this day shall be in thy heart. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thy house, when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. I love this. And thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thy land, and they shall be as one frontlet between thine eyes, and thou shalt write them upon the posts of thy house and on thy gates, So let's go look back at 4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. So we are to love, well, excuse me, I'm sorry. Let's go back to 4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. What is it saying? What is that verse telling us? Go ahead. Listen, okay. Mr. Newkirk, do you have?
And that there's no other God.
No
There's
other God.
And you see the thing about this, God was warning them through Moses because they were about to enter in pagan country, and there would be multiple gods. And so he didn't want them to get the fever. They had already lived through that in Egypt for that Egyptian bondage, 400 years or 430. I still got to do research on that. It's 400, 430, but there's a difference between the two. And I have it ready for you eventually. But anyway, they had lived in that bondage for 400 years. And so they were about to enter the promised land. As Jesse said, the old generation is dead.
Yeah, right,
This
exactly.
is the new generation. Deuteronomy, it means the second law. And what Moses is doing, he is repeating that law. Much of this, and that's why it's called the second law. And so he was preparing them. You're about to go into this pagan country. You're going to have all of these gods. But what you need to remember, there's only one God. I'm the one that's speaking.
Exactly.
The great I am. That's what we need to remember. He's the great I am. He was a great I am then, and he's a great I am now.
Right, exactly.
And now,
Brought him out of Egypt. When Moses went up to Pharaoh, he said, "Who sent me?" And Moses told him, "I am."
Okay. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might. And that means we need to love the Lord with everything within us. That's just, yes,
And not from
everything that's.
And not from the bottom of your heart, your whole heart.
Well, you know, did you, exactly. Last Sunday before last, yes. But I'm taking it is at the bottom all the way up to the top, all the way up. But from the bottom all the way up with all our hearts.
and we don't just love him when it's convenient.
Right, when you love
God
all the time.
Because he doesn't just take care of us when it's convenient. He takes care of us all the time.
Take the good with the bad.
Right, yes.
Sometimes the God is more than the good.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But you learn from the bad. Yeah, you learn, or at least you should.
And you know, that's what the first commandment is, to love him, and the second commandment is to love our neighbors.
Yeah.
And I think the last time I taught a lesson, it related to this lesson today. And that means that if you would just, those 2 commandments right there, you don't even have to go any further. That's a done deal. Yeah, everything else will take care of itself.
Because I don't know many folks on planet Earth who hate to say
No.
because if they do, there's something wrong.
Well, you know, I don't know, Jimmy. Nowadays, you hear things on TV and on Facebook. It's unbelievable. But if we are to, yes, oh yes, it's an illness.
They have something in their system.
That's
But just ordinarily, folks don't hate themselves.
Right.
As I love to say, if you have a half a brain, you don't hate yourself.
That's
If you got
exactly.
half a brain.
I don't want to hurt myself. And I tell people often, if they say, well, you know, she committed suicide, somebody go and search and check this thing out, because I'm not going to hurt myself now. No, sir. Okay, let's look at 7. And thou shalt teach them diligently. Did I miss 6? No. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thy house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. In a nutshell, what does that mean? Talk about him all the time, yes.
7 explains it well on the opposite side. But talk about him all the time.
Let's look at 7. Can you read that?
Yeah. Recite them to your children and talk about them. Listen to this: when you're at home, when you are away, when you lie down, and when you rise.
And that's
But that's 24/7.
24/7.
You
That's
talk about it. That means we teach our children. You know, have a devotion. Have it. You know, I know my daddy was in the grave. He's been dead since I was 9 years old. But Mama had a devotion on Sunday morning. On Sunday morning, nothing fancy, but it was a devotion.
Right.
And children, I saw something, I heard something when I was planning my lesson. Said children don't learn from lectures. They don't learn from lectures. They learn from your lives, the way you live. And I like that. They don't. That's it, Kenny. Repetition. This is what. And a lot of folks complain. Say, well, Jimmy, you've already said it. You've already said it. Well, I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it again.
Exactly.
That seed campaign, I'm going to say it again. You know why? Because folks are not listening. So I'm going to say it again. We have ears, but we hear not. And that's what Deuteronomy is about. It's repetition. This is the second law. So if God repeated and repeated and repeated through Moses, I believe
Who are we?
as his servants can repeat something too. Because, you know, it was something I heard said it takes, person has to hear something 3 times. That's, you read it too. Yeah, that's right. You got to hear it 3 times before you can process it. And for many of us who were stubborn or whatever, we had to hear it more than 3 times, and sometimes had to get knocked around until it finally sank in.
Till it dang.
That's why sometimes you send your children to school, don't expect for them to learn everything in school. It's got to start at home somewhere.
Right.
So, you got me started, Diane.
In the beginning of this lesson there.
I like this. In the adult book, there's a
Oh,
story.
yeah,
You see
I
that?
saw that,
There's
right,
a story about the woman, and she wanted the school to raise her children. And you know, as a former classroom teacher, I saw it. You know, our job is not to raise your children. No, that's your job. Because, you know, we have parents who are dreading for school to get out. They'll be glad when school opens up again. Send these old bad children back to school. Let these teachers do something with them. But now, this may shock and amaze you. Those are their children. And we teach whoever shows up. That's what we do. Whoever shows up. And one size does not fit all.
Right.
Because everybody has issues.
That's like this man went to the courthouse with his son, and he had beat his son, but the judge told him he couldn't do it. So he told the judge, "If I can't do it, you take him and you raise him. You take him and you raise him."
Discipline starts at home.
That's
That training starts at home. Don't expect somebody else to raise your child. Don't expect that. And then the very best you do, sometimes they still go astray. The very best you do.
Okay, let's look at 8. And thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thy hand, and thou shalt be as a frontlets between thine eyes. Bind on the right hand side, bind them as a sign on your hand, fix them as an emblem for your forehead. Can anybody tell me what this?
Well, these 2 verses not to be taken literally. They're figuratively, because now the Jews in ancient time actually wore a little box. It's called a phylactery. It's a long word, it starts with a P, and it's a little box that they wore on their foreheads and on their forearms. And the scriptures were in that box. But we don't do that now, because we would look rather strange. We would look rather strange walking around with a box
On my head.
on our forehead, because we would draw so much attention. But that was common back then. But what these 2 verses mean, it's not literal, but these two verses simply mean that we are supposed to soak in the gospel.
Let it be visual all the time.
All the time, all the time. And it can be visual without having an object on your forehead. Let it be visual. You know, I've told you before, the old lady said, when you see me coming, I got him on my mind. And that's the attitude we should take. You know, it doesn't mean that everything is all right, but when you see me coming, I got him on my mind. So that's what these two verses mean. They're not to be taken literally.
Okay, the second outline is marriage as a sacred trust, and it's in Matthew 19, 3 through 6. 3, the Pharisees also came unto him, tempting him, and said unto him, is it lawful for a man to put away his wife for every cause? What were the Pharisees, what was he trying to do? Trap Jesus. Try to. But, you know, the Pharisee, he was slow. He didn't know. You can't trap Jesus. I don't care how you try, you can't trap him. 4, and he answered and said unto them, have ye not read that he which made them at the beginning made them male and female? That's just as simple as that, male and female. We don't even have to go in.
Yeah. And you see, they were trying to trap Jesus, but Jesus took them down memory lane. He went all the way back to Genesis. Don't you know how it was in the very beginning? And because, see, they raised the question, can we divorce for any reason? Any reason. Again, trying to trap him. And Jesus, what they were trying to do, they were trying to put Jesus between popular opinion of the day and the Mosaic law. And so Jesus took them back to Genesis, made male and female. And then he goes on. They think that he has taken the bait, but Jesus is too wise to take the bait.
And I'm reading here from my source. It says, today, some want to have same-sex marriages with the blessing of the church. Reason for same-sex attraction and desires are complex and serious. Christians should not trivialize the situation for those who experience same-sex attraction, but God has the prior claim on our identities and life choices. Jesus made God's idea very plain. You know, he created male and female. Okay?
And it was one. It wasn't, he made it male first, then he made it female, and female came from male.
From the rear. Okay. All right. 5, and said, for this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. So that's pretty much explained. You know, when husband and wife get together, there is one. Okay. Does anyone else have anything to say about that? 6. Wherefore they are no more twain, but one flesh. What therefore God hath joined together, let not man put us under.
Well, if you one flesh, it's going to be hard to get separated. I mean,
Exactly.
I don't know how you're going to do that.
You know, I've always looked at this verse 6. It says, what God has joined together. God don't put everybody together.
That's what I wanted to hear.
You know, some people put themselves together, but they don't mean God put them together.
Did y'all hear that? Now, y'all read it closely now.
Yes.
What God
What
hath
God
joined together, let
let
no man
put
put asunder.
And that's just
Now, come on. Everybody that says I do,
Don't mean
was
God.
not joined by God.
Right.
Now, come on now, because don't you know you have sinners and unbelievers who marry all the time? They marry all the time, and they jump in and out of marriages,
Yes.
in and out, in and out. Now, what God? I noticed that some time ago.
Many
What
years
God?
ago. But I learned that, and you know, sometimes people want to make things fit, but if it don't fit in that puzzle, it's just not gonna fit. You know, and it just plain to tell you, it don't say what I put together. It says what God put together. Let no man put them under. Asunder.
Go on.
We want to make things convenient for
Oh,
them.
yeah.
That's right,
Yeah,
Diane.
right.
And you see, Jesse was teasing me before Sunday school started. Just that, Jimmy, this is one of your topics.
Well, I thought about
Don't you
that.
remember? Don't you remember when
I
I was
thought
teaching
about it.
Bible study next door? I said I wouldn't talk about divorce, women preachers, and tithing. But we're stuck this morning.
Right.
So I got to say a little something. And so what Jesus is saying, the Pharisees wanted to divorce for any reason. And when I read, and you all read it too, they could divorce if the woman burnt the toast.
Right,
That's right.
exactly.
They burnt the toast. If she didn't smile or if she didn't give him a male child, they could divorce. And that's ridiculous. You think about that for a moment. Because anybody would have a bad morning, you might burn the whole breakfast.
That's
Are you going to divorce James? He's going to
No,
divorce because you burned the whole breakfast? That
Exactly.
could happen. So Jesus is saying here that the main thing is God does not endorse this, but God also knows that people have sinful ways. And even with believers, sometimes there may be a reason for divorce. And I'm not going into any detail here, but there may be a reason. There may be. And so we got to keep that in mind. But Jesus is saying God's original plan was for the couple to stay together. That was the original plan.
Yes, that was
the
it.
couple to stay together. Now, for whatever reason, now, when I've done my studying over the years, I have found two scriptures that will justify divorce. And Matthew 5:32 and 19:9 here, and 1 Corinthians 7:15. But even with those two scriptures, there are other reasons that folks may divorce. For example, emotional, physical, verbal abuse. Those are reasons. Keep that in mind. But we don't jump into marriage lightly. That's why it's important if a couple is planning, especially a Christian couple, if they're planning to tie the knot, say I do, they need to get some counseling. That's important. Counseling is essential if they want to tie the knot. Yes, ma'am.
Lesson also said that God didn't the Bible, God didn't say divorce was okay. Moses allowed it because the people were so hard-headed.
That's it. That's it. Yeah.
He
And,
just
and,
figured,
yeah, that,
people
right.
would come along and probably kill their wives or do whatever for no good reason.
Yeah. That's in
God
verse.
allowed it because Moses,
Exactly. There you go. That's coming up. But that's a good point, though. It's coming up. It's coming up. Chill for a moment, brother. It's coming up.
Pump your brakes, Brandon. Pump your brakes.
Brother, you want to go ahead and say it, though. That is exactly right. So God, that was not in God's plan.
Right, exactly.
And so we got to be so careful we talk about divorce because, we have divorced couples in our church. We got to be careful about that. And I'm not a pastor. I'm just a lowly Sunday school teacher. They don't need to confess anything to me. Go directly to God. And I don't know why they divorced, and that's none of my business. But as long as they worked it out, that's the thing about it. Because, when I think about that, that's why I told y'all, divorce, women preachers, and tithing, I don't talk about, but we're stuck this morning. I'll leave those topics to the preachers.
Okay, on the right-hand side, it says, so they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate. What God.
That's right.
Yes.
All couples were not saved when they said I do. They were not. And sometimes you might have had the wife who was saved, or the wife may have been saved, or the husband was not, or vice versa. And a lot of times, when they stay together so long, sometimes the wife can influence the husband, or the husband can influence the wife.
Yes.
And like you were saying about the same sex, the same sex can't produce. And God didn't intend for it to be that way.
At creation, he approved one kind of marriage bond, man to woman.
That's it, that's it.
We're gonna leave it right there.
That's it.
Okay, the third outline, family as a moral compass for society. Family as a moral compass for society. And it starts with Matthew 19:7-9. 7, they say unto him, why did Moses then command to give a writing of divorcement and to put her away? I think, come on, Brandon, get, okay, Brandon.
And see, what he was doing, he was at a concession because, as worse, I'm using bad grammar now, he knew worse things were going to happen. Not worse, but worse things. I'm using bad grammar now. Y'all know I know better. But worse things were going to happen. And so as a concession, Moses gave in. He gave in. But that was not God's plan. God's plan was for you to stay together. Stay together. But there's always a but. If that man is knocking you around and you got to sort of hold your hand up when you're trying to eat breakfast, you don't need to stay in that marriage. Now, Ken, don't get me started. You trying to eat breakfast and you're holding your hand up, knowing he might hit you in a moment across the table. You don't need to stay in that. Leave. And you cook the breakfast. Leave. You cook the breakfast.
Jesus said that Moses gave this divorce law only because the people's hard hearts. That's why. But it was only meant. God didn't mean for them to separate. That was not his intention.
No,
No, it wasn't.
You might be thinking about something that happened last week.
What they don't remember is whenever they took the vows, it wasn't just a vow between them and their husband, it was between them and God as well. God was in those.
Yes. Come on back here, Nixon.
Talk to it. Brenda, you read your lesson. You got to remember that person you didn't see. God was there too. Not just you and your husband or your wife, but God was there. You got to keep that in mind.
Yeah. It says Moses instituted some laws to help its victims, because some people, have been, staying, we're talking about abusive marriage and all this stuff. So he kind of helped, and thank God he did, because, some people probably dead and gone. They didn't leave out. And if you listen to the news and all, and just even so, sometimes you don't need to tell them that you're going to leave them, because just last week on Facebook,
That's it.
you hear talk of this man killing 3 children, 8 children. 7 was his.
That's right. He killed 8.
Right, 8.
killed
And
8
he
children.
told it says she told him that she was getting a divorce the next day. Now, sometimes you just got to ease on out.
Keep your mouth closed.
Yeah, just
I love to say there are some things you leave at the foot of the cross.
That's right.
Keep your mouth closed.
Yeah,
That's what you do.
Yeah.
And then these women, bless their hearts, a lot of times they would say, well, I love him. I love him. Now, let me tell you something. There's a difference between love and abuse. There's a difference, just like night and day. And then a lot of times, some women, and I'm being considerate here, some women may not have enough training. Their husband may make more. He may be the major breadwinner. And they're saying, well, how can I make it? Let me tell you something. There are enough resources out there now in 2026 that you can make it. There are enough. Don't stay there and take that abuse. That's why a lot of sons would turn on their daddies, because that daddy has hit that mama one time too many.
And you.
Always keep it with women nowadays, men are abused.
Sure they are abused. Yeah. Sure they are abused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just sad how sane or insane. Now I'm gonna tell you, that man was crazy.
He killed 8 people. I believe they're from ages 3 to 11. I believe that's what I heard. is 3 to 11.
And
Eight babies.
and shot both mothers.
Whew. Whatever he was on, I don't want to get near that stuff.
His parents knew something was wrong with him, and so that's why when you talk about mental health, when we see something, we gotta
Say something, right? And we don't want to.
something that could have possibly been prevented.
Right, right.
You see something, you say something, you do something. I like that. Don't ignore it. Don't ignore it.
There had to be something, but we're not gonna go there. This is not the time. Yeah, but it had to be something. Okay, let's go to, where are we on 8? 8. He said unto them, Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, suffered you to put away your wives, but from the beginning it was not so.
There you go. There's that.
So we go,
But from the beginning, not so. But because you're hard-headed, what did I say? Again, worse of things going to happen.
So from the beginning, it was not so, which means that it was God's idea for you to stay together.
stay together.
And God doesn't change his mind.
That's right.
So if God meant for you to stay together in the beginning, he means for you to stay together now.
Yeah, who's that saying? Let's stay together. Who's saying that? Is that Marvin Gaye?
I think so.
Let's stay together. Let's stay together. But Marvin Gaye's daddy killed him.
Yeah, well, I was about to say, there we go, here we go again.
The old man killed him. But let's stay together.
Bad boy.
He'll be a bad boy. Bad bunny, as they say. Whoever Bad Bunny is.
Hard,
Yeah, there you go. You see how these Sunday school lessons are relevant?
Oh,
You
yes.
see, because our grandchildren can tell a Bible story. If that's all we need, if we're just going to tell a Bible story, we might as well stay home and just read your Bible and perhaps if you're home. But we have to see how these lessons relate to us in Little DC in 2026. If we can't make them relatable,
There we go.
close shop. Close shop.
Okay. 9, and I say unto you, whosoever shall put away his wife, except it be for fornication, and shall marry another, committeth adultery. And whoso married her, which is put away, do commit adultery. And on the right-hand side it says, and I say to you, whoever divorces his wife, except for sexual immorality, and marries another, commits adultery. And he who marries a divorced woman commit adultery. So, who has something to say on that?
That's a verse I leave for the preacher. That's all that is. This is not the only reason for a divorce. Now, naturally, if keeping around, that's not going to, that can't make a good marriage. No way in the world. No, you got a person who's bed hopping, and yet they say they're married to so-and-so. But we got to understand, for that particular context, Jesus was telling them what the law said. For that, and that's how, when we read the Bible, we have to look at context. When we start isolating one scripture, we get in trouble. We got to look at context. But there are other reasons for divorce. And bed hopping is not the only reason for divorce.
And as
But
Brenda-
again, I'll leave it to the preachers.
Right. And again, as Brenda said, a Christian marriage is a sacred trust between a husband, a wife, and God.
That's right.
Okay?
And God.
And God.
And another part of the lesson says, as well, which I think a lot of us forget sometimes, it should be a union that allows each partner to grow into their best selves in mutual respect, honor, love, living in peace, without stifling each other.
Yeah, good point. Good point. You respect each other, because you got to realize at the close of the day, there are two grown people in the house. Two grown people. Janie doesn't raise me. I don't raise her. Her parents did what they could. Mom did what she could. But there are two grown people in the house. You know, I tell folks when we got married, we got along fine. But with the in-laws, her mother lived in Warsaw, and my mama lived in the Yellowcut. We got along fine. And the daddies were in the grave. But we got along fine.
If you can't at home, you can't. You don't have anything.
Yes. Does anyone else have any questions?
Okay, it can be a man that's wearing a mask, and like you can first meet this man, and you think he all good, and then the mask come off of him, and then he's like real terrible, abusive, and all that. God is not gonna want you to stay in that marriage. God gonna put somebody else for you that He wants you to be with.
That's what we're talking about. There are other reasons. You know, if you're being abused physically, verbally, emotionally, move on. Move on.
This last paragraph, I don't know if you all have the same book that I have. It says, Christians who marry should follow Jesus' mandate to remain together and not separate, to view their relationship as a covenant of faith in which God is an intimate partner. Jesus also desires for his disciples to have an abundant life, to live in harmony with one another, and to submit to one another. When a married couple can live in this way, they will have the foundation of a happy home, whether children are involved or not. Okay? So if we don't have any other questions or concerns, I see our pastor stepped up in here today. Pastor G. Okay.
This is another question. Okay, like some women that's abused, they don't make it out their marriage. That man killed that woman. So, you know what I'm saying? God wouldn't want them to stay in that kind of marriage because the marriage that God has for them is for them.
And you see what happened? They stayed too long. They were hoping that things would get better. They stayed too long. Again, we have to be rational and reasonable. God does not want us to be in a twisted relationship. Now, that's for sure. Pastor, I was telling the group, and you may have heard upstairs, but I was told the group, I've said it so many times when I was teaching Bible study, I said, there were 3 topics that were forbidden to me. I just didn't feel qualified, and that was divorce, women preachers, and tithing. But I'm so glad you showed up this morning. Yeah.
I
I'm
think
so
he
glad.
purposely came down. He wanted to tell us something.
I personally, I was listening upstairs. So I will say that this was a great lesson. And, you know, when we think about, I guess so you can see me. You know, when we think about the human condition that we live in, and we look at the news, right? And it was mentioned about the young man that killed the 8 children. 7 of those were his own, and there were these domestic issues. And you flip on social media, you turn on the news, and you hear about real world situations. There is a word from the Lord. And I am of the school that we can't avoid life if we serve a Christ that says that he came that we might have life and have it more abundantly. And I know that in the traditions of the church, you know, we're not supposed to talk about this, or we're not supposed to talk about that, or we're not supposed to talk about the other. I don't agree with that, because when life is real, then you need a real God that's going to help you to deal with those real situations that you're dealing with. And so, Tamika, I thank you for bringing up, you know, the point that, you know, sometimes, you know, when we deal with issues of marriage, things are not like they used to be, right? And I mean, you know, and I think all of us have been living long enough where you've heard some terrible advice being given to women by women. You need to stay in there. You need to just stay in there. Ask the Lord to help you. And you have women that are, well, nowadays it's men too, all right? being emotionally abused, being physically abused, being financially abused, being, and then they're just, you just need to stay in there. Or when something happens, I have been around, even in my experience in the church, where we're ready to sit somebody down, where I can't believe he's supposed to be this or she's supposed to be that. Well, we don't know what happened in that house. And if they get it right with God, who died and made us the judge of what somebody else did or did not do in their house? Does that make sense? And so then when we think about, and this kind of goes back to what I talked about, last week when I was in Burgaw. Sirs, we want to see Jesus. And we have people, who come into our churches all the time. And I say churches, right? Because a lot of times we think about this thing as something that's going on over there. Or what's this church over here? Is that St. Philip? And what's this church? All right. And or maybe it's going on down there. You don't know what people are dealing with that's sitting here in this sanctuary. You don't know what people are dealing with that is sitting here or that will come in today. And so I am grateful that Sister Stephanie, that you dared to go there, right? And I just want to encourage you because, as life gets difficult for people, people are going to be looking for outlets. They're going to be looking for advice. And if you don't know what to say, pray. Pray. Because, we have people that are dealing with so many different situations and they're looking for a word from the Lord. They're looking for, as it was titled in this lesson, love that shapes a society. And if you think about, that common cliche, what would Jesus do? When we're dealing with these situations, what would Jesus do? What did Jesus do? There was the woman that had the 5 husbands at the well. Now, I don't know if, the Bible doesn't really, whether she divorced them or she killed them or she just had 5 husbands. And the one she was with, right? Or the other woman who got caught right in the middle of adultery. What did Jesus do? And I'm saying that all that to say that when we as we are continuing on in the times that we're living in, a lot of the taboo topics can't stay taboo because they're not taboo in society. They're not taboo within our society. And if we try to, insulate ourselves, hey, somebody's going to talk about it. But we might not like what another voice has to say. All right, any questions? Because you said let the preacher talk about it, so I came down. So I came down since let the preacher talk about it. So here I am. But are there any questions? And one thing that I will say that as you take away from this lesson, I was talking about yesterday as I was meeting with the deacons. I said, God is calling us to prayer. And one thing that you can do, if you don't know what to do and if you don't know what to say, is to pray. Because there are a lot of people who are dealing with a lot of stuff. And as somebody mentioned, where if the man is so bad, why does she just leave? Because he's the breadwinner. He's the breadwinner. and then she's wondering how she's going to raise her children, or how she's going to do this if he's not, in the picture, or there's this psychological abuse, where if it's not him, then it's his family, and if so we never know what people are dealing with, but let us be sure to pray, because we never know what people are dealing with that are around us. And one thing that I would say, because the Bible says that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. I think that women, and like I said, nowadays it's men too. Women abuse men now. They don't want to get a divorce. They just go kill. I say it jokingly, but well, in my house, especially on the weekend, I had this. It's not an issue, but I watch Dateline NBC, and so I see all the stories about wives killing their husbands and the husbands killing the wives and all this stuff. But I'm saying that that this is real, right? And one thing that we can do is that as we come into contact with people that are dealing with situations, you might have a word yourself from your experience. And like I said, and I don't know everybody's story here, right? I don't know everybody's story here. You know what the Lord has brought you through. And there might be times where God is using you to share something from your experience with somebody else, because maybe you went through something and you don't want somebody else to go through it, right? Because the days for us, just keeping silent, it's over, because nowadays, and I don't want to use words lightly, but people are crazy. They're dealing with mental illness. I'll be technical about it, but then now I'm gonna be spiritual about it. There are people who deal with demons, and I know that people don't believe in. I do. I do believe in demons. Yes, there is evil, and there are people that are evil. And what we don't want to do is to allow people to suffer. If Christ has set us free, then we are free, indeed. And like I said, and then on the other side, right? Because, you can probably help somebody who's going through a rough patch, and you went through that same rough patch, and you can help your sister, your brother to make it through that rough patch themselves. And so with that being said, if there are no other questions, this was a great lesson. Thank you very much, Sister Stephanie, for allowing God to use you yet again. To God be the glory. To God be the glory. All right. If nothing else, and I